would go onto YouTube and I'd see the garbage that was being presented. That's so inefficient. That's never going to fly in the business world unless you don't mind working for free.
I love it. It's a great tool.
Meet Darren Priest, a California detailer turned YouTuber whose channel has helped countless detailers get their start.
I guess I got enough notoriety on it. It kind of went to my head. I'd be at the beach or in Vegas or wherever, and people would be like, hey, Fetish, or hey, Darren. I'm thinking, wow, this is weird. Oh, you disappeared for 3 years off of YouTube. Like, what happened?
What happened is interesting.
What are those big mistakes?
But Darren's journey as a guy who discovered the magic of getting paid to clean cars, well, that's pretty interesting too.
They come out, they're happy with your job, and they hand you that money, and now you drive away and you think, damn, this feels so good. I'm gonna set this speed to a level 5.
On YouTube and in this interview, Darren has no shortage of opinions.
Yes, shocker.
Or advice.
Everyone wants to talk about detailing or teach it or shoot videos about it or come up with their own product line about it, but no one wants to do it. You know why? Because it's effing hard.
What is one thing a detailer should never do?
What you should never do is you should never
Darren Priest.
here, present.
You are here, and I'm so excited to have you on Nick at Night. You've had such a profound impact on me as an auto detailer. Your YouTube channel, must-see TV for me as I began my journey. The question I have for you is, it seems like you kind of disappeared. Where did you go?
Yes, I did. And where did I go? I took a hiatus, we could call it that. Really, it was a combination of a few events in my life, all of which were unwelcomed events. And because literally for, 30 years, it's hard to believe this. Because really it was shortly after the inception of the internet, and when I realized that, okay, the internet's here to stay, and I discovered this industry called online marketing. And because after, let's say, 7, 8, 10 years of detailing, I realized, okay, the body's probably not going to hold up. And I was always looking for an exit strategy, even though I absolutely love detailing. And I'm very much that way. My personality, very forward thinking, always looking over the horizon, in preparation. So the point is
a detailer, even who loves detailing, is always like, where can this take me? Because my body won't be able to take it forever, right?
I think it's natural. I don't know how it could not be. I suppose there's guys that just really live in the moment and they don't really think like, long term. I suppose those guys exist. I'm just not one of those guys. So once again, always looking over the horizon, it's like, okay, what am I going to do when this kind of plays out and I just can't keep up with it? I always loved it. Point being is the internet came to be a thing. I heard about online marketing and I thought, hey, how can I combine the two of these together? And that could be my exit strategy, is that I could start making money online and do less and less of the physical detailing. Despite how much I love it, it'll be easier on the body. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to start developing courses so that I can teach guys that want to learn how to detail their own car. And so that was my initial goal. And so I started writing this stuff so long ago. The point is life happens. I'm raising a family, having kids, trying to make ends meet, trying to build my business. And I've always been a guy that really has just had too many irons in the fire. So it's just year after year would go by. I would get into these conversations with my customers and they'd talk to me about it and be like, yeah, this is my plan and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, next thing you know, 5 years is gone, then 10, then 15, then 20. I'm getting, oh my gosh, I still have not actually developed a course. So when things went south in a lot of ways for me, unwanted events, I thought, okay, this is my opportunity. I'm just going to focus very narrowly on building my courses so I can finally establish the fundamental courses that I knew I wanted to develop for guys that are getting into the business. And so that's what I've been doing. And it's almost embarrassing to say, but I've been at it for close to 3.5 years. And the problem, or part of that dimension, is learning one platform, and then after 6 months realizing that's not the platform for me. I need to go to this other platform. So the learning curve had to start over again while simultaneously writing, developing, organizing. It's just like, oh my gosh, this is so time consuming. So that's why I stopped doing YouTube, because it's like, I just really need to focus on one project, because I just never do that in my life. And I really have a strong aversion to YouTube and filming in front of the camera. It just does not come naturally for me, despite what people see.
Well, I want to talk about some of those life events, but this is a podcast that I think at the heart, has detailing as the connectivity, right? And so we have people who are interested in cleaning cars here. So I do want to ask you about cleaning cars.
Yeah.
What is your thought on detailing for money? Do you think it's something that you think it's oversold on YouTube as this great way for anybody who's willing to work hard to make a living? Because you've had shops, you've been a mobile guy, you've coached guys. Is it a mirage? Is it a good field to go into? What are your thoughts from where you sit? I know you're trying to, you got courses, so I'm guessing you believe in it, but
I do.
I was okay at the money making. I was really good at the cleaning of the car, not so efficient. I mean, I couldn't fully detail for money. I tried it, and
because
I'm better
maybe
at the content side.
Maybe I could flesh out your experience that will actually answer the question. So when you say that you couldn't really detail for money, what does that mean for you?
So I was mobile, and then I got a shop, and then I brought on a business partner, and it was just, I don't know, I just wanted to spend like 30 hours doing paint corrections and making everything perfect. And
okay, so you
process. I wasn't necessarily as interested in running a business as I was in just the art of car cleaning.
So it sounds like you were really interested in truly detailing, but it's like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be making money on this. I'm supposed to be profitable, because that's one of the things that I dig into with a lot of guys is it's one thing to make a living. And it's like, oh, okay, you just killed yourself 50 hours this week detailing every day, a lot of cars. And at the end of the week, how much did you make? Oh, I made this amount. It's like, okay, but have you deducted expenses and taxes? And did you deduct your travel time and your cleaning of your cloths and your organization of your own vehicle, keeping your vehicle clean? There's only one thing in life really that can't ever be replaced, and that's time. It is the most valuable commodity, and it's something that until you get older, you just somehow don't really appreciate it. And so what happens is most guys get into business and they don't allocate their time and place a value on it and say, wait a minute, I've got to travel 25 minutes one way to Johnny Customer. That's a 50-minute round trip. Am I factoring that money into my job?
No.
Most guys say no.
Because when you start out, it's just, I'll give away my time.
You're desperate.
I'll work my butt off, and I'll get paid right away, and it's awesome. And it's addicting because it's such a passion-driven industry. So you believe that detailers can make money. You've been mobile. You've had a shop. What's the?
I've had employees. Yeah. I've done wholesale. I've done retail. I've done auction stuff. I mean, I've pretty much experienced probably every sector that you could label under detailing. So yes, I have lived it. And that was my journey. As I started out as a one-man show, got my first employee, then I grew into
Wayback Machine. When did this start?
Okay, 1988.
1988. Okay.
Yeah, it's a long ass time ago. I mean, I think it's like 35, 36. Don't make me do the math, but it's pretty long. And I had just been married. And I was literally just looking for a side hustle, and it was an accidental moment. Back then, way before what's that?
What was your main job? What were you doing for a living?
I was a customer service rep for a company called Medarec, and we leased equipment to hospitals, and I had to clean them, deliver them, pick them up, kind of interact with the hospital staff. And that's what I did. It was a sucky job. It was a nowhere job. And I never was built for corporate America anyways, because I can't not look at something and figure out a way how to improve it. And it's kind of my nemesis in life, which is everywhere I go, I'm scrutinizing everything and saying, okay, that's dysfunctional. That's not very clean. That's not organized. This needs work. And so I can't help.
When you flipped it back on me about the detailing, I'm like, no. I don't want to even dissect that. I could feel that. And I'm like, nope, this is the Darren show. Like, I don't want to go back into that because there were a lot of issues that I know needed some microscopic scrutiny. And that's not what I want.
Yeah, I saw you backtrack that,
yep,
or I didn't literally see you, but I sense that. It's like, okay, he just backed out of that.
Yeah, totally. All right, so it's 1988. You start getting into detailing.
Yeah, it was accidental. I was literally just trying to find a side hustle, and my goal was this. I mean, it depends on how much information you want. The point is I've been at every level of detailing where I started as a one-man show.
Yep.
Yes, it was great. The thrill of your first job and driving away. And this is something I drive home in my courses is that, man, that feels like freedom. When you experience that first detail, something that you did that you enjoy doing, and no one's looking over your shoulder. Yeah, you could say your customer is kind of looking over your shoulder, but not really. And so they come out, they're happy with your job, and they hand you that money. And now you drive away and you think, damn, this feels so good. And I can remember that very first job I did. And I thought, okay, if I can do this once, I'm pretty sure I can do it again and again and again. And next thing you know, I did. And I was motivated because I just love my autonomy. Once again, I was not wired to work for corporate America and the dysfunction of it. And so I thought, this is great. And so I just kept doing it. And then it's like, okay, now it's time to grow because I've got more work than I can do myself. Yep. Got my first employee. And at first it was just on the weekends, it truly was a side hustle. I mean, I was literally already juggling actually as time moved forward, I ended up juggling 3 different jobs. And then that's when I went searching for a mobile wash route of a guy that was trying to sell his business. And really he had 3 customers. And really what I bought was his mobile unit. That's really what I was after. But it led me to this business park that was pretty close to where I lived. And I just went around to the business owners of that business park and I introduced myself and I just grew it and grew it and grew it. And then I grew my business, brought on other workers, built out other mobile units. So I had 4 other mobile units going. And then I negotiated
mobile units at the time. Okay, so you've done this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I negotiated in the business park. There was a guy, a wholesaler, a retailer that literally just set up like a little mini car dealership in this business park. And I got to know them. It was just casual. And they had a Mercedes in there. It was a CE, a 300 CE, which is a 2-door. Actually, it was an E-Class body. Why is it? Anyhow, doesn't matter. It's a 2-door, kind of the sporty E-Class. It was a 1990. I remember it very specifically, white with a gray bottom. And I just love those cars. And every day I'd walk through there and I think, oh my God, who is detailing these cars because they suck? And I know I could take that car and perform my magic on it. And I promise you that thing will sell in like no time because it had been sitting there for about a month. Yeah. And so finally the guy was just saying, and it was kind of a challenge or kind of a bet. Where it's like, dude, your detailers suck because I could see them. It was Jose and Hose B working on shredding cars up and just not doing a very good job. And I said, I can take that car and perform my magic, and I promise you that car will sell. And he goes, probably, maybe, I don't know, go for it. So I did it. Literally within 2 days, that car was sold. And the guy's like, okay, the boss man wants to talk to you. Yeah. So I negotiated a deal. And I started doing all their cars. But after we negotiated the deal and put things in writing, he decided to renegotiate things out of writing. And it's like, okay, that's not what I agreed to. So things went south. And so I just closed the shop. It was, we did both retail and wholesale out of there. And so then I just stuck to my crews. But then it's just like, man, like by the time the end of the year comes around and taxes, you have to pay taxes. And I've got all this workman's comp and payroll taxes and all this other expenses. I just thought, this doesn't seem to be worth it. I was making more with less headaches, being independent. Yes, it was harder on my body, but it just was less stressful. And so I dialed it back down to a one-man show. And then my goal was to literally, how do I become as profitable as possible? So if me, and I'll talk about myself in the third person, if Darren is able to make $50 an hour.
I love Darren in the third person. I feel like I'm watching an old video. Here we go.
Yeah. So if Darren's able to make $50 an hour, what could he make $60 an hour or 70 or 80 or 90? And so that became my challenge. And so I have figured out stuff that I don't talk about on my YouTube channel of how to become increasingly more profitable. And so that's what I did. And it
Give
worked.
away some secrets, Darren.
Okay, one of them, without telling a guy how I do it, because that's a problem. I've actually told guys, I said, what if I told you that you could show up to a detail and not actually have to worry about washing it? And they're like, well, what does that even mean? It's like, well, your customer's going to wash it first. And they're like, well, dude, how are you going to do that? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, the customer doesn't want to wash their car. I said, I know they don't want to, but you know that they're getting it washed somewhere, right? Yeah, they're obviously getting it washed somewhere. Okay, so I could teach you how to present it to your customer in a way that makes sense, that that car will be washed before you show up, and that will save you at a minimum 30 minutes, if not 45 to an hour, because some cars are just horrid, especially if you've got a customer that's kind of cheap and they say, you know what, I need to get it detailed. I just made an appointment with the guy and it's 2 weeks out, so it's already dirty now, but why am I going to wash it? Because he's going to wash it in 2 weeks anyways. And so by the time you show up as a detailer, it's like, oh my gosh, there's like an inch of dirt on this car. It's going to take me an hour just to get the chunks off before I can actually do what I'm being paid to do, and that's detail versus washing. So there's one of my tricks. Another trick would be, how do you get out of doing the trunk? Well, the trunk's included. It's a full detail. It's like sometimes, but not always. So it's a matter of presenting, and this is where marketing comes in, right? You know, because if we all just bought what we need in life, we wouldn't need any advertising and marketing, you know, companies trying to convince us of why our life will be better if we buy this. So yeah, it's presentation.
That's everything. What is one thing a detailer should never do?
I don't have a quick answer for that, really. It would be more about what they should always do. So the reverse of that, or the corollary of that, is like, okay, what you should never do is you should never have a talk with your customer and assess their expectations before you touch the car. So that's me saying that you should always do that. So never doing that would be the problem. You should always, always, always ask the right questions so you can understand what their expectations are, and you can start managing those expectations before you touch the car. That happens before you touch it, not after, not during, before.
Communication is so important, and if you don't do it well, it will show its face in so many aspects of your life, in business and in relationships. We could go anywhere with this conversation.
Yes.
But, all right,
In fact,
we do the surface level. Well, okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, interesting that you say that, because it's, what's that?
Well, I want to get like the quick timeline of your arc, of your journey. So
okay.
But so hold on to that thought. But like, so you close up the shops, you go back to Darren Mobile, and then you just grind it out doing mobile for 20 years after that? Or were there other?
Yeah, that's the simple answer. Along the way, I branched off into a lot of areas. Like I started doing RVs, I started doing boats. I mean, they're really, because I was, I'm a very creative person. How about that? And so I'm always looking for an angle, you might call it. So I've literally detailed people's homes. I've detailed the refrigerators. I mean, I didn't care. Like, I actually love cleaning and I love organizing, and I really liked most of my customers. And if they're willing to pay me because they saw the value I could bring, it's like, oh my God, like, can you teach my housekeepers how to clean my house, because they aren't doing as good of a job as you? And so really, I just figured out how to be as, once again, it comes down to being profitable. And it's just like, well, maybe I can be more profitable cleaning this person's refrigerator because I don't really care. I just like cleaning. Now, did that happen frequently? No, it didn't. But I have so many stories of these weird, random things that I cleaned. But the point is I was constantly expanding and evolving. Like, for example, doing headlight restoration, doing, chip repair. I mean, if you went to my website, you would see all these services, all these specialty services that I can perform or learned how to perform. That's where the emblem removal came to be. Back in the late or mid 90s, it was a thing to lower the Suburbans and the Tahoes and the trucks, and we called it dechroming back then. And my first customer, whoever that was, said, "Hey, I want to get these taken off. Is that something you can do?" And I said, "Well, I've never done it, but I promise you I could figure it out." So I did. And that then evolved into this whole separate business that I still do to this day. So it was just, so this evolution was just constantly churning and going and growing and expanding into these different little niche markets. But and then I kind of did float, like occasionally I would decide to hire someone else and work with me, but I never went back to having multiple crews, multiple, mobile detailing units. And I never went back to having a full-time shop, that type of deal, because it just, I don't know. I just loved the detailing part of it, but I didn't want to deal with all the other BS.
When did you decide to start YouTube? And when did you realize it was kind of taking off? Because when I started in 2017, you were one of the biggest. I mean, there were guys like Larry from Ammo, I think, who were already doing it, and cool guys, Greg Masterson. But Darren from Auto Fetish was one of the big names. I mean, to this day, you have 108,000 subscribers or so on YouTube. But you were pretty close to that, even 5-6 years ago. And so I saw you when you were already there. But I feel like you must have really owned that market pretty early on.
It's funny. I would never attach any of those labels to myself that you just used. Two of them specifically, like I own that market. I never thought that once. I was one of the biggest. I never thought that once. That me going onto YouTube, like I resisted that temptation, I'll call it, for probably 5 years. I just did not want to touch it because I knew it used to spin my head out. So it was this push-pull moment where I would go onto YouTube and I'd see the garbage that was being presented. And that's kind of hyperbole. It wasn't all garbage. It's just that every video I saw, regardless of who is delivering it, based on those names you just said, it's like, no, that's not true. Or no, that would never work in the business world. Or sure, if you're a home hobbyist and you've got a whole day, a whole Saturday to burn, but I don't. Like, do you really want to burn a whole Saturday doing that job? It's like, no, I'd rather burn an hour and then have fun driving my clean car. So I would see all this stuff and think, oh my gosh. Plus, once again, I've got 10 different irons in the fire behind the scenes. I'm married. I'm raising kids. I had 3 kids. I'm running a business. I'm trying to stay in shape. I'm trying to eat healthy. I mean, all that stuff consumes a lot of time. And I'm thinking, okay, let's start a YouTube channel because I've got plenty of time to burn. So it just, I resisted for so long. And then finally I thought, and then never mind my own psyche, which is like, oh, I got to now talk in front of a camera. I'm not comfortable with it. And so finally I did it. And it was just painfully awkward for me. I mean, just painfully. But I persisted because I knew I could deliver useful information to people that really wanted to take this information and apply it to the world without consuming a ton of money and time and effort to do it. Really, it was a simpler way to do things. And that was my unique value proposition, even though I didn't really come out and say that. That's what I was geared or trying to do is, bring common sense to this industry that I was already seeing hyped up. And so that was my motivating factor. Yes, it grew and it caught on, but it really never became less painful for me. I mean, and then when I guess I got enough notoriety on it, it kind of went to my head, where that was kind of cool. Like literally I'd be at the beach or in Vegas or wherever, and people would be like, hey fetish or hey Darren, I'm thinking, wow, this is weird. I mean, that was happening at like 40,000 subscribers. And I thought, wow, that's bizarre. And it's kind of cool. But at the end of the day, it's like, is that really motivating me to keep producing videos that just, it takes so much work, and I was already spread so thinly that it just, anyhow, but so,
Success has a cost. People don't realize what it takes to put out content on YouTube. What did you have to give up or lose along the way to get that kind of success?
I don't have, like, I would like to say nothing other than, okay, if I'm going to be completely candid with you, which is generally how I roll.
That's what I want here in Nick at Night.
Yeah.
That's what we
And I'm
here.
thinking about it because it's such a big, expansive umbrella of, and what it is I am just worn out. Like literally, I'm so worn out because the life I've lived with, relationships and children and health and finances and buying homes and selling homes and then divorce and a relationship in the interim and then getting remarried and then blending families. It's just like, so this dude, once again, third person, this dude is worn out. And I hate to admit that, but I am. Does it mean I've stopped? No, but I've slowed. That's where I've really had to manage my life now, is I've got to just let some of these irons that I've had in the fire, I've just got to let them go. And that's part of your question about like, oh, you disappeared for 3 years off of YouTube. Like what happened? So there's just so many moving parts, and it's like, I am like tapped out.
Well, for me, it was, I'm willing to not sleep. So I went to my main job, which was an hour drive each way. And then I had my mobile detailing thing, which I started on the side. And so I barely ever saw my family, and that had a price, right? And I never blamed detailing for that, because maybe I would have found some other way to either numb out or not be present. But what I'm saying is the cost was I didn't see my family, but I was able to like build a side business and continue to be successful in my career. And it sounds like we share something in common, which is that, I'm sorry you're going through this. You mentioned a divorce.
Yeah, this will be my second.
You're going through it now.
Yeah. So I can relate to what you're saying. So a couple things. One, I actually have had insomnia my whole life. And so I have always gone without sleep. So that's yet another dimension of my life. It's like, oh, dude, you actually kind of need sleep in life to actually live. It's like, yeah, I'll be the first one to tell you that. And that's actually how I built my 2 websites, is because I was awake. And every one of my kids can tell you stories where they, or wake up to go pee at 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's dad on the computer working away. Okay. So that was like yet another side hustle of mine. And then also, because I'm probably the most tenacious and disciplined person I know, I didn't want to let anything go. I didn't want to let my relationships go. I always my relationships, that was always my top priority in life, period. And then honestly, it'd be a toss up between my health and my relationships. And when I say relationships, I mean with my wife or ex-wives, whoever it was at the time, and with my kids. And so that was always the priority. Yes, I worked a lot of hours. Yes, I juggled a lot of things, but I always made time for them, a lot of time. And you're like, well, you only have 24 hours in every day, Darren, just like the rest of us. Is like, I know. And this is where time management comes in, and the ability to really prioritize based on your value system. And that's where the more fine tuning you are, the more you can actually juggle multiple things and put in the kind of effort that most people only put in on 1, maybe 2 things of their life. It's me. It's just like, I'm going to be putting that 100% effort, which doesn't actually compute if you use math. I'm going to put 100% effort onto 5 different areas, relationships, health, finances, my business, go down the list. And so
I think that's why I was drawn to you, as you're hardcore, man. Like, you're hardcore. I wanted to be an amazing detailer, and I could see how hardcore you were. I knew you were in shape. you always had these sayings. I remember like when you talked about the magic erasers, the eighth wonder of the world, and meet the moment, and all these different sayings. I remember a video of you showing me how to use the Tornador Black and emblem remove. I could tell you were like a, possibly you had some issues you had to work on, mental. You were just really hardcore though about, you were about detailing, and you can't fake passion. We're animals. We can smell stuff on other humans. And I could just tell you gave a rat's, you cared. You cared about the cleaning. And that was like one aspect of your life, but I could feel the passion coming off you. Almost to the point where I was like, I could tell it bothered you that certain things out there weren't so, and you were trying to write them, and you really cared about getting this information to people.
Yeah. And
anyway, so I could tell
honestly,
you're a hardcore guy. You're an all-in kind of guy.
Yeah, I am. It's pretty much all or nothing. I don't really toggle in between on most anything.
So
which comes at a cost. What's
that? It does
that?
come at a cost. So it sounds like you haven't slept a lot.
Well, to add a little caveat to that is I discovered prescription sleep pills, whatever you want to call them, Ambien. And so I discovered those years ago. So it has improved my sleep. It's far from perfect, but it did improve it. So yes, I've been able to manage sleep better since I discovered Ambien. But yes, it's, and most people around me, they just say, oh, I'm just wound too tight, and I know what they mean by that and whatever. It's like, yes, I am. I've got a lot of expectations for myself.
So, and I think that's a great thing. I think people who get into detailing are all fired up. Like we're hustling hard. Like we're willing. Like, don't you think there's something about detailers? Like we're not afraid to work hard.
Absolutely. But see, that's where you could call it a lot of things, the tension or the contradiction. And that was part of my disdain for YouTube is I see these people that I know they're not doing it as a business. They may act like they're doing it as a business, and I won't name any names, but I know because I can scrutinize the world, whether it's what kind of shape that they're in or the lack of ever showing a mobile unit or ever showing an actual shop, or there's just things I can tell, like the stuff that they teach. It's like, okay, that's so inefficient. That's never going to fly in the business world unless you don't mind working for free. So I can scrutinize all these people. And that's kind of one of my sayings in the past, let's say 10 years, is that my opinion is that everyone wants to talk about detailing or teach it or shoot videos about it or come up with their own product line about it, but no one wants to do it. You know why? Because it's effing hard. It's hard AF. And that's why you've got to be a special kind of like insane to stick with it long term. And so there was so much about it that I just love. I love being outdoors, especially here in Southern California. I mean, we have pretty great weather all year long. Yeah. Yes, it gets hot. I mean, I was working in plenty of 100-degree days. Fortunately, the humidity is not crazy here like it is back east, but it gets hot. And I love basically not wearing clothes, so I would be the guy that would show up and be presentable. But when I'm out working on your car, I'm going to strip down to just shorts. And I don't care if you got a problem with it, Johnny customer, because I'm going to make your car look fabulous and you're going to be happy when I'm done. But I don't want to wear clothes I'm sweating in anyway. So I'm just out there. Plus, I got my music on. I'm very much into my music. And it's just my own world. And I'm just being physical. I love being physical. And once again, I love cleaning. I like the improvement I can make with anything. And so that's the special kind of crazy that I think that you got to be hardcore, long-term successful at it.
What's the most money you ever made just detailing cars in a year?
In a year? I have no idea in a year. It'd be more about a day. Like probably my best day was $800. And this is before coatings. Like I've yet to apply a single coating on a car to this day.
What?
Yeah, I know. Never. I haven't.
You've never applied a ceramic coating?
No. I was still detailing when they came out, but because once again the industry was hyping them up with all this stupid labeling and packaging and promises and all this jargon that they weren't even explaining, like, ooh, hardness of 8H. It's like, okay, I only know what 8H probably means because in drafting we use pencils that were labeled based on the hardness of the pencil, the lead of it, and they would use that quantifying system of like a 4H pencil, like a regular pencil. Like growing up, I think I don't know how old you are, but you're probably old enough
38. Yeah.
Okay, to use old school lead pencils in grade school. And that's what's called a number 2 pencil. Do you remember that? They would call it, oh, you need a number 2 pencil.
Into my palm, and I had like a little lead mark in there for about 20 years. He like
so
jammed a pencil into my, anyway.
Yeah, probably not the smartest thing to do, right?
No. Still looking to see
lead poisoning, remember, as anyhow. Point is that the industry. What's that? Explains a lot?
Explains a lot about my life. Anyway, so I'm still shocked about you never applying to coding.
Most people are.
Which is like, there's so much to unpack there.
Why, Darren? Why not? And it was part of that transition where I'm getting out of the business, the emerging market, the technology of ceramic coatings, as well as paint protection films. They were improving those. Yeah. And it's just like, you know what? I'm going to wait on the sidelines because this hasn't been tested enough in the real world. And now these companies are coming out and saying, oh, we guarantee this for 10 years. It's like, dude, this technology, as far as I know, hasn't been around for 10 years. So how are you going to make a 10-year promise on your product? And so I just like, I don't want anything to do with it. And my customers weren't asking for it either. And so I thought, do I really need to educate them and convince them? It's like, hey, you got to let me put the ceramic coating on your car. It is better than wax or sealant. It's going to last 3 years or 5 years or whatever years. And it's just like, no, they're not asking for it. The demand's not there. So I don't need to overthink it. And plus, being mobile, you are subject to these thing called weather. So it's not particularly conducive to applying a ceramic coating. It's different when you're polishing a car to perfection out in the sun. Yes, you've got like a little bit of floating dust that maybe guys could have an issue with, but it's really a non-issue because when you're done polishing, you just blow it off and then you apply a wax or sealant and you're good to go.
Well, times have changed. I mean, I think a lot of detailers out there are doing pretty well by offering coatings, and I know you could argue that maybe the market has gotten to a certain saturation point. I don't know who thinks what in terms of. I think with the company that Ivan and I have, DIY Detail, it's like these are great coatings, and we're empowering the everyday enthusiast to know how to install them. And I'm sure that's probably eaten in. And others in the market as well, it's probably eaten into the pro market a little bit. But I think if you're marketing yourself right, I mean, there's a lot of money to be made offering a coating and a correction or a polish, to the right affluent customers.
If I was gonna re-engage with the whole world, I mean, my first thing would be that I would lean into the paint protection films, because I had customers. Because there was an overlap between me transitioning out of it and then this emerging market that now is being embraced by some of my customers. And so like I remember my first one, he bought this top of the line Lamborghini, some special edition, had the entire thing, put a paint protection film on it, and then had a coating put on top of that. And I think, wow, dude, talk about, that's like getting a brand new, what's that?
That's the way to do it, Darren.
I agree if it's his money, which it was. And it's like at a level, I think, dude, is that kind of like getting floor mats to put over your floor mats to protect the first floor mats and then getting a clear floor mat to protect the next floor mat because you don't want to get that. I mean, at some point, dude, and he was a pretty neurotic guy. Which is why he and I fit, because his expectations were so high, but I could meet his expectations. Anyhow, the point is, if I was to re-enter the market, I would lean into the paint protection film and coatings, and because I do know, especially around here, there's plenty of shops that are really doing very well with coatings and PPF. Why
did you name it Auto Fetish?
Well, I wanted something to be memorable. And I typically don't follow the mass mentality where it's like, ooh, Darren's detail, because that would like roll off your tongue pretty easily, right? Detailing by Darren. You know, that's expected. But there's a story behind it. So growing up, and I'm going to go into high school years, here in LA, there was a station called K-Rock, and it was alternative music. And there's a record store in LA that they used to advertise for called Vinyl Fetish. And I thought, I know what fetish mostly means, but it's memorable, it's catchy, and it's provocative. Like fetish, like, dude, what is up with the fetish? Like, what does that mean? You know, so if you're an old pervert guy, like you're going to know what fetish means. You know, so, and this is, once again, this is going back into the 80s. You know, I was in high school in the early 80s, you know, from 80 to 83 or 79 to 83. Anyhow, so vinyl fetish. And I thought one day I'm going to have a detail business and I'm going to call it Auto Fetish. And that was the inception. That was like the spark way before I actually started it.
So there's the story.
There's the story.
So I think a lot of folks who maybe have watched your channel and then kind of wondered where you went may wonder, are you still detailing? Like, what kind of caused the hiatus? Was it family oriented? Was it business? Is there anything you can fill in for folks in terms of like just people who care about you? And you know, the thing about the internet is this: they kind of care, but if you stop making videos, they just kind of forget about you.
Oh yeah.
And that's the way I view myself too, is like, it's not that they're going to like mourn you or like have a eulogy for you or like, where did he go? They just forget about you. And I don't forget about you, Darren. So I'm like, I've always wanted to get you on a podcast. So now that I have one, I'm like, I'm getting him on. I want to talk about the journey, but I also want to know like, where have you been? So, yeah.
So to be a little more
with you.
So to be a little more specific about that, if we rewound the clock, it's probably, let's say, about 6 years ago that I was just business as usual, still detailing, still doing YouTube. But then Tom Horvath, which is the founder, creator of CSI, which stands for Clear Coat Solutions Incorporated. Yep. He's the formulator of the original single product polish. And I've known him for years because even though he catered to what's, the body shop industry, his products still were useful for detailers. And his shop happened to be very close to my house, and I would always pass it. And this is so long ago. This is when his first business was called System One. But then he went through a divorce and really got hosed and had to rebrand it, rename it. Point is we were always, friendly with each other. And then I don't exactly remember how it came to be, but we started talking, and then it became like, hey, we should join up. I said, I've been using your products for years now, and I love them. And I like the fact that it's simple. It's not hyped up. You're not making all kinds of outrageous claims on your labeling because it wasn't really labeled for retail use anyways. And so it just matched up. So we formed a business partner. I put skin into the game. I put money into it to buy like literally shares of the corporation. And the company is basically doing nothing. I mean, I started at ground zero with that company, or I'll correct that. It wasn't ground zero, obviously, because you had a product line. It had been tested, proven. So there was that. But
you've got this giant YouTube channel. I remember when Darren started to move towards CSI, and it was very much a pivot in your channel.
Yes.
So you brought a lot to it. I mean, I heard about them through you. Anyway, continue on. But
yeah, and that's
what you brought to the game. Yeah.
And that's the point, is that he thought, okay, you could bring a lot to my business because it's basically going nowhere right now, which it was. It was basically going nowhere. And so I brought it to the world through my YouTube channel on that platform. And I did stuff that he just thought was not possible. And I said, first thing, Tom, we're not selling it for what you want to sell it for. We're actually going to double that price. And he goes, it's never going to sell. I said, I promise you it will sell. And then it did. And then we started making money. And then I said, okay, now we're going to raise the price again. And he's like, oh, can't do that, Darren. I said, well, we're going to do it anyways. And I'm going to show you it's going to work, because I'm going to teach people why this product is worth what we want to charge for it, and why it's worth way more than what you were charging for it, Tom. And by the way, you actually weren't making money at what you were selling it for. So that's just not going to work anyways. So I was able to do that. And then without getting into, name calling or whatever you want to, I don't want to disparage Tom, but in my opinion, he just went in a different direction, which is like, Tom, that does not make sense. We should not go in that direction. We need to focus on this, fill up the holes that are holes in our system, because there was plenty of them that we needed better labeling. We needed just to do a lot of stuff. And so we just had a difference of opinion, and that's where things went south. And I was just so burned out by so many things. And I thought, okay, this is the time I'm going to take to just work on those courses. And that's when I decided to just tap out of YouTube and pretty much just go off the radar, so I could just focus on developing. And if anyone's interested, because they're like, oh, your courses. So detailvault.com, that's where you can find out where I've been hard at work for the past X amount of years, detailvault.com. And it takes so much effort, because I'm doing everything. I'm designing the website. I'm writing for the website. I'm building my courses. I'm organizing. I
had to write that for you now?
No. I mean, now I could. And by the way, rewind, because that's a topic that I do a deep dive on. Like, I'm very much into the AI sphere.
You are all about deep dives. That's why I'm so happy that we've been able to dance through all these different topics in a little short amount of time, because I know we could just sit on one for an hour.
Yeah, we could. And so it's funny, because if you just rewind because I've been following AI like hardcore for at least a year and a half. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this technology is probably going to make both my websites, because I actually have two websites, autofetishdetail.com and bestautodetailingtips.com, which is separate from detailvault.com. So right now I have three websites.
Too much.
So the two websites, I thought, okay, AI is probably going to make those irrelevant. And those are two websites I spent well over 10 years on writing and shooting. I mean, just an immense amount of work. And then secondly, it's like, and I'll probably be able to write a better course using AI if I just wait 6 months, which I didn't. I just kept working on it. And now here we are with AI. And it's like, yeah, literally, I could probably just write it with AI. I didn't. And I actually can still organize and write better for this niche than AI can. And I have 3 different AI platforms I use to test that. So I leverage it in ways that help me become more efficient, but I still am able to outperform it when it comes to really dialing in, like, the secrets. Is AI really going to come up with a secret of how to not wash a car or how to get out of doing a trunk? No, it's not. But I can teach them that.
I'm curious about, back to your YouTube story, right? So to me, you're still one of the top dogs on YouTube, and you make this pivot to CSI. You essentially, to the outsider, you're selling out, right? Whatever. You're a business guy.
Yes.
You got to do what's best for you. I'm not going to sell out. But I had a smaller level. I had Hawk Pro Detailing, and then I fully embraced DIY detail. I'm looking at Pan, who has Pan the Organizer, obviously has YouTube channel, and now he has Clean by Pan. This is on the House of Rags YouTube channel, by the way. So obviously I'm just shouting these guys out. But Eddie Colon and then Jamie the Cleaner, right? They're all in on the House of Rags. So at some point, I think this is aspirational, because this is not going to be everybody out there listening is going to end up having a YouTube channel and then getting a chance to be the face of a brand. But it's definitely a pivot point, and you definitely worry, like, am I selling out? Am I losing my roots? Are my fans going to rock with this? So I'm just curious if you have any regrets, or, like, do you feel like that was, the right? I know it ended, but that was later, right? And you definitely, because you went all in on CSI on your YouTube channel.
Once again,
video after video after video,
yes,
you were just you fully embraced it.
100%, and that's part of how I operate as a person. As I said, if I'm in, I'm 100%. And so I was all in, which is ironic, because one of Tom had a little trepidation, is like, oh, I'm afraid, Darren, that if you come into this and then someone's going to come along and poach you for some more money. And I said, Tom, I promise you right here, right now, that will not happen. And it's ironic that it's like, dude, why is our relationship dissolving? It's not because of me. And so it's just this irony in my life that seems to be a theme in ways. So yes, I was all in. Do I think that guys are selling out when they come up with their own product line? No, but I guess that would depend on what you mean by selling out. I don't regret it, because I proved that my marketing can work. And now I would not apply my marketing skills to something that I didn't believe in. So I believed in his product line 100%. And so if someone were to accuse me of selling out, which I'm sure they do, I've never had a discussion with someone about it, but it's like, okay, maybe your definition of selling out is different than mine, because maybe if I was going to say someone is selling out is someone that's just pushing a product line that they really don't have much experience in, or they're misrepresenting it, saying like, oh, we blended this ourselves, we developed this ourselves. It's like, I'm going to call bullshit on most of that, because you probably didn't. So these are all talking points, or points that I was able to verify with Tom, because I know Tom literally developed it. He formulated it. I know his full story. And that's part of why I could be 100%, and part of why I was willing to do it, because it's like, I can get behind that 100% and know for sure that I'm not selling out at any level. I'm not going to overpromise. I'm not going to embellish anything. And so it was really a good fit. And so I don't regret it at all. It's just a bummer how much effort I put into it. And now it's just nothing. It's gone. At least for me.
Yeah, that you're no longer a part of that. So
no.
And again, to me, that was probably about the time when I stopped sort of tuning into Darren. I was like, all right, he's pivoted, like, as am I. I'm going to pivot. Yeah. And I was probably watching other people as well on YouTube. So that's kind of when I felt like I went my separate ways. And, imagined you had a lot going on. And I guess you filled in some of the blanks for me there. I guess I wonder if you are still detailing at all anymore, or what occupies your days.
Mostly it's sitting in front of this computer. Like, for example, because of my current relationship that's dissolving, and the nightmare that divorce can be, it's kind of, I can't make a whole lot of alternate decisions, because everything's still like, basically we're fighting over stuff. It's petty stuff. Yeah. And I don't consider myself a petty person. So it's just really, it just has upended my whole world. And so what I do is I'm literally working on my third course, which kind of might seem a little funny, but they're very specific courses. One is how to get started in the simplest, fastest, easiest way possible. The second course is really just, I stripped away all the bonuses and all the fluff of that first course for guys that are just hardcore, just show me what I need to do, Darren, and I don't have much money to do it. And so that was my second course. And then my third course is really about the process of detailing, like systematically, where do I start? What do I do next? How do I check myself? How do I not get lost in the details? And so that's where my time is consumed. And in the meantime, I take care of my health. I'm constantly tweaking my diet, tweaking my exercise, rehabbing injuries. And so it's really me. Like,
what do you do to stay, what do you do in TRT? How do you stay, what are your tricks and tips and tricks as you, cause you look great, but the body breaks down.
It does. And that's where I could easily, start my own channel on health and fitness, because I have so many decades into it. I mean, it's probably 4 decades of working out and fitness and eating and trying different diets. And I've tried extreme diets, because really it's that mindset. How can I improve everything? I can't help myself. It's just automatic in my head. And that includes my body. It's like, well, if I'm experiencing this kind of health, or if I'm experiencing this injury, how can I improve it? What do I need to do? And so I've got to filter through all this information out there, and then constantly test and test and test. And so that's what I do, because I'm literally trying to be like, right now, I'm in the best shape of my life. If you were to just look at me with my clothes off, and I don't mean completely naked, but let's just say I was up on a stage or at the beach, which is where I go every weekend, and I'm on display. And I get a lot of people that make comments because they can tell I'm older, and they're like, dude, like, what's going on here? And it's like, well, First thing I'll tell you is there's no silver bullet. There's no magic pill. And it's going to take way more work than you think. and it's going to take way longer than you think. Now, if you can embrace those two principles, then I can teach you. But because people do, they just want to come up and say, well, what's your secret? It's like, there is no secret. I can promise you that if you just did the basics of working out with resistance, weights, just do the basics, like 7 different basic exercises, and you did it consistently, and you learn how the body works, where you got to break down the muscles, but then you got to repair it through rest and proper nutrition and sometimes supplementation. So it is a lot to learn, but each one of those topics is so simplified, and it's really what I did with detailing. It's like, I don't need 3 products to do this. I only need 1. And here's a technique that's even quicker, and here's a scrub pad that's even quicker. I don't need what the industry is trying to push on me. And so I've done the same thing with my body and health and fitness. And so I've tried these different diets, from 100% juicing only to vegan, to then raw vegan, to then nothing but fruit. So I've tried them all. So
okay.
So now I'm
them all.
carnivore.
Oh, you're carnivore now. You're out in California doing all the raw vegan.
Yes.
So you're carnivore now?
Now I'm like, first I started introducing, I transitioned away from all the vegetables and stuff, and transitioned into what do they call it? A paleo diet, which is low carbs, more fat, and more protein. But now I would say, I'm trying to think, I might be 100% carnivore at this point. I don't think I eat no vegetables.
What did you have for breakfast today?
I don't eat breakfast. So I also do intermittent fasting. And now, based on how you want to label it, is what's called the OMAD diet, 1 meal a day. So I consume my 1 meal usually around between 7 and 8 p.m. every night. And before, I was doing what's called butter coffee, which isn't what people probably think it is. It's really just coffee, and you add butter to it. And I learned that from Dave Asprey, which is the founder of Bulletproof Coffee. So that was my journey onto the carnivore diet.
Doesn't that break the fast, though, having the butter in the coffee?
Well, that's what I mean is, so my life is always evolving. So if we rewound the clock 6 months ago.
Listening, if they still are, think about this. I love talking about, I do intermittent fasting as well, so I'm interested in this.
Yeah.
But okay, so wait, so you just, real quick, do you do coffee then in the morning with no butter now? Or what, how do you,
currently right now, I don't, because I've now transitioned into a more strict routine. So now what I do is what's called a dry fast. Have you heard of that?
Tell me more.
Okay, that means, so fasting can mean a lot of things to people. Fasting is just doing without. And so they say, oh, I'm fasting. It's like, okay, so you're not eating. It's like, but you're probably drinking water, right? Like, yeah, I am. Okay, well, that's not really a fast. It's like, well, kind of is. So it depends on your interpretation. So a dry fast is like you literally drink no fluids of any kind, and you eat no food of any kind. So you 100% abstain from any type of intake at all. And if you want to be really extreme about it, that even includes brushing your teeth with water or taking a shower, because your body can actually absorb. It'll absorb some of the moisture. And so if you want to be really extreme, that's what a hardcore dry fast is. I still take a shower and I still brush my teeth, but what I do is a dry fast every night now. And so once I'm done with my meal at, let's say I finish up by 8 o'clock, I'm done completely eating my meal. I will not drink or eat anything until 1 p.m. the following day, which is, I think if I did the math, is about 17 hours of a dry fast. And I'm doing that, and that's my latest experiment to see how much more I can finesse my body is to how I want it to be. And it is pretty extreme, but I kind of thrive off of, the extremes of things.
And TRT, is that a thing?
Yes.
Testosterone replacement therapy? Are you doing that?
Yes. I highly recommend that.
You're like RFK, because RFK does intermittent fasting.
Oh, really?
Has a ridiculous physique. And feel like he's not a young spring chicken either. So it's like, I just wonder, like, as you get older, is TRT the answer? Is that the pathway to like continuing to work out? I don't know.
It depends on who you are. I've been on it probably 2 years now. Could I work out? Meaning I didn't see any dramatic results, because honestly, the reason I only took it is because I was going through this mental thing, and I don't even know if it was mental or physiological, but on the weekends, because once again, I just pushed myself too far, and I would hit the wall on the weekends, and I would get into this state of mental where it's just like, and I remember complaining to my wife where I was just exhausted, because we'd go to the beach every weekend and we'd play smash ball on the sand, and I would just tear myself up. And I'd come home and I was just like completely annihilated. And it's like, I just want the world to open up and swallow me and put me out of my misery, because I'm in so much pain and anguish right now because I've just pushed it too hard. And so I told my doctor about this, and he said, you know what, I got a few options for you. And one of them was testosterone, which didn't even make sense to me. But when I started doing more research, it's like, well, wait a minute. If my testosterone, it was hovering about 400, which is low, but for a guy my age, because I'm 59, so a guy my age, it's not that low. And insurance actually doesn't kick in on it until it's at 300, which is irrelevant because it's pretty cheap. Point is he tried me on that, and I noticed that I wasn't hitting the wall on the weekends anymore. I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. And then people say, oh yeah, TRT, that really helps you build muscle. And it's like, well, I don't know if it is or isn't, because I haven't seen anything dramatic change. Really,
you've always had a physique, right? Yeah.
Yeah. What really dramatically changed for me is when I started tweaking my diet, and then more specifically doing carnivore. It's like that really I would say that doing the intermittent fasting and the carnivore diet, that really supercharged things for me, I would say. But yes, I do TRT. It's 0.5 milligrams once a week. I do inject it. I inject it into the side of my butt. Because I know people are, I mean, if I was in audience land. Thank you for being
honest, though. Thank you for being honest. I appreciate that.
Because I know if I was in audience land, I'd be like, well, but wait, how much are you doing? Like, are you over, like, how much? How are you doing it?
And there's creams. I mean, I've thought about it. I'm only 38. Like, I just feel like once you get on it, though, from what I've heard, you're just kind of on it, right? It's one of those things you're probably going to be on.
Yes, but with that said, is I have known a couple of guys. One of them was on YouTube that adopted the carnivore diet and stopped taking testosterone because it wasn't really purposefully, but he just kind of did it because it's a hassle, and something about his prescription. He thought, you know what, I'm just going to give up on it, see what happens. His score went up from, let's say it was at 350, went back up to 550, and he was just eating a carnivore diet, and he stopped taking it. And so it's like, okay, maybe there is hope, because most people will say that, oh, once you try it, your body stops producing it, and you're going to have to be on it for the rest of your life. If that's me, that's fine. I'm okay with it. I mean, I'd prefer to not take anything, to not have to be dependent on anything. But based on what it did with my mood, it was well worth it.
Yeah, life's hard enough that I'm the same way. I'd rather be autonomous from anything. But if something is helping me that much, I could see the benefits of it. Darren, I kind of want to keep these podcasts under an hour, and that sort of feels like a natural place. It's a place of hope, a place of optimism. If folks want to hear more about your health journey, maybe we get you back on the podcast.
Yeah.
If they just want to reach out to you, maybe they're interested in getting some coaching, or they don't know exactly where to find you. What information do you have for them?
I am an easy find. Literally, I'm so prolific on the internet. So I've got 3 websites. I don't want to list them all for you. My main one is detailvault.com. But I'm just like, literally, you could punch my name in, and you could probably get access to my phone number in half a second, because it's everywhere on the internet. Yep.
Well, hey, I remember reaching out to you one time when I burned through the vinyl on a boat seat. And I remember calling you, and you ended up calling me back and walking me through it. You probably don't even remember that conversation.
Wow.
I appreciate it.
I'm surprised, because I feel like I've got a really good memory from all these little stories from people in the past, but I can't say I remember that.
That's okay, because you were a busy man, and I remember getting your phone number off the internet as well. So, Darren Priest, I appreciate your time, sir. A pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you, Nick.